Hi, everybody. Happy 2021, and welcome back to myfreeactingclass.com. These are your free lessons. We're now doing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 4 to 4:30. So 3 days a week. Leanne Lapp started us off yesterday. She'll be teaching every Monday, doing straight talk and industry insider. Those lessons will not be recorded. So if you want Leanne's awesomeness, you're going to have to show up on Monday. I can just tell you about them if you can't ever come Mondays. But incentive to come and play on Mondays, because that way there's a place where there can be sort of like open discussion of talent agents and casting directors that won't be recorded and then put on the internet for everybody. These lessons are still going to keep going on YouTube. Now, Tuesdays are self-tape review, and then Wednesdays are going to be acting, where I will do all of the things that I have done in the 8 months of lessons in 2020. So I will talk about acting technique, I'll talk about audition technique, I'll talk about promo materials, I'll do script analysis and breakdowns, and that's also where we'll have guests. Already next Wednesday, we have a guest scheduled, Julia Sarah Stone. I'm going to see if I can dig up her first ever acting video. She's somebody who, when she first started acting, um, found it very, very challenging. And that was at maybe like age 10 or 11. She was taking my class, and I think it was the first acting class she'd ever taken. And she just fell in love with it and put in a whole bunch of practice, and has gone on to be very, very successful. I think she's in her early 20s now. She has something like 50 credits on IMDb. So I'll pull her up for next Wednesday, but she's going to join us and talk about what that journey was like for her. Now, today, I'm going to start by reviewing a couple of self-tapes. One from Natalia, who's a regular attendee of our lessons, who's in the UK. So she can't be here today because of time zones, but she is a religious watcher of the videos. And she even emailed me like, hey, are you going to review my video? So know that on Tuesday, anybody who sends a self-tape, I will review it. I obviously won't have time to play all of the self-tapes, but if you send it to me, then I will review it. I'll look at it and I will send you notes. I will email you notes. And I'm even set up to the point where Leanne on Monday was like, well, if that gets to be too many emails, then I'll take some of them. And so I think between the two of us, we could probably handle 40 or 50 of those a week. And so we're nowhere near that right now. So please send a self-tape. If you have something you're working on in class and you want an outside eye on it before you put it up in class or after. If you have an audition, even if it's like, hey, please don't show more than 15 seconds of this because it's got too much identifying stuff, but I'd love your opinion on it. That's really useful for us too. And then I get to show that 15 seconds that won't get you in trouble with the people who are producing the project. And you get some feedback on your tape, and everybody learns in the process. And I really want to see what's happening in the world of self-tapes too. So please share your tapes. info@myfreeactingclass.com. The Now, the exercise that Julia, who's going to join us next Wednesday, like first fell in love with when she was 10 or 11, was one that I do in my classes. For especially then was doing a lot of my classes for younger actors, where I would say, here's a single line of dialogue. I basically just had this sheet that's got hundreds of individual lines of dialogue. And I said, here's one line of dialogue. I want you to make a whole scene out of it. All right. So first, I would just have people saying the one line of dialogue to get used to saying the line of dialogue. And then I would say, okay, great. If this was a one-line audition, everybody would say those words. Not everybody would bring in all the life around it. So what do you see or hear first that you're reacting to that makes you want to say this line? Like what's happening before the scene? What's happening after the scene? Can you make a whole scene out of this one line? Okay, and now that you did that, can you use the same line and make a completely different story and tell us that? And how are you telling it to us with the camera? So my invitation to you who are either here joining us today or are watching this lesson at home is I will put that file right on the main page of myfreeactingclass.com so that you can download it, so that I'm making this as easy for you as humanly possible. Pick a single line of dialogue, record yourself doing it a couple of different ways, and send me that for the self-tape review for next week. right? So that there's no fuss about finding professional scripts. There's no, I want to make it as low barrier as possible because it's practice at this thing that will get you to the point of skill that you want. And it really is just practice, which I can prove to you if I can find that first tape of Julia's, because you'll be like, whoa, this kid has no idea what she's doing. And yeah, of course, that's where everybody starts. So let's first talk about some of the kind of basic camera technique stuff, because Natalia's videos are extremely well shot. Right, so what we've got is a very clear eye light, a light reflected in the eyeballs, very, very important. If we go back to me for a moment, and I turn off my eyelights, then you will see that I start looking dead inside, dead inside, dead inside. And so eyelight, enormously important. Whether you know it or not, you are reacting to the lighting in a shot, and if somebody just like looks great, a lot of the time it's because they're very well lit. And even if you know somebody, if seeing the tape, you're like, wow, why does that person look so amazing today? It's like, you know what, it's probably lighting. The importance of lighting cannot be overstated. Now, here in front of me, I have a very inexpensive ring light that I got on Amazon. At this point, I think ring lights are probably the best option. They're considerably more portable than the softbox lights. They often will come with their own tripod. I don't actually think it matters what brand because LEDs are pretty hard to mess up. So I'm not going to like plug any particular brand, partly because I only have these one set of ring lights. I don't have 9 kinds of them. But what you're looking for is a ring light LED. Now, if you don't have that, a desk lamp that you point at your face totally does the trick. What you want is just this light reflecting the eyeball. So back to Marina. Neutral background, right? Non-distracting. Doesn't have to be blue, doesn't have to be taupe like hers is, or beige. The idea is that it's just neutral and non-distracting, right? There aren't books in the background or a guitar. Basically, there's nothing that's in any way interesting to look at, so we have to look at her eyeballs. You can see that she's wearing, oh, if I can just get this. No, I can't. Aha, there we go. You can see that she's wearing a lavalier microphone. And so in this tape, Natalia sent us some tapes in the fall, and one of the things I said was like, you've got to get your reader to talk more quietly. In this one, she's got a lavalier mic, and so she's much louder than the reader, which is exactly what you want for a tape. This was a perfect scene for her. This is an NBC miniseries, whose name I won't say because I believe they're still casting and shooting it. Where one of the main characters is Russian. It's set in Russia, and so she had a scene in English and a scene in Russian. So we're going to see both of those, or at least I'm going to show you a clip of both of those. And then she got a callback for this role, and I'm going to show you a clip of the callback as well. So here is is Natalia's first scene in English. Right. So eyeline is very sure. Eyes are very close to the camera. Eye light. Sound, obviously very important. Neutral backdrop, very important. And framing. What we're seeing is a head and shoulders. Like this is called a medium close-up. Top of the head to just below the armpits. It's also what you're seeing me in is a medium close-up. You don't want to be any further back, or the felt sense for the people watching will be that they just can't feel you as much. Obviously, sometimes you're doing a scene that requires a lot of physical action. You have to be a little bit wider. But if you don't have a lot of physical action, then don't shoot your scenes like this, because the feeling for the people watching will be that they just didn't, they wasn't as emotionally connected. And that's just camera trickery, but it's the way that it affects us emotionally. Now that I would say is the only, like, strictly speaking, mistake, in this particular tape. I think that, like, even though it's actually written into the script that she's like fussing with her, equipment, that the noise is so distracting that it would be a good idea not to mess with your lavalier if you happen to be wearing one.
This is it. This is it. Put them on. You're joking, right? No, I'm not joking. But I'm not in any danger.
Right, then if you skip to the end of the scene, basically she's showing up at a protest. The protesters seem peaceful. Other protesters show up. There's a big battle going on. By the end of the scene, she's trying to record the news report. And like bottles are breaking and people are throwing things and tackling each other.
Streets of the UK, but with this general election coming closer and closer, the confrontations becomes more and more often as political enemies resort to the.
Now, I wanted to show you a clip of this first one to contrast it with what it is like when she's acting in her first language. And I know I talked a little bit about this in the fall, but what I want you to look at immediately in the tape where she's acting in her first language is how much ease there is in it. Did you see? She was not consciously projecting in this last one, but did you catch how her voice was a little bit too loud? And what happens is when you just put in even just that little bit of extra energy in your voice, then what happens is that it flattens out your voice, right? So it's like your voice has got all of those little levels that you see on, one of those EQ things, on your speaker, and if you turn up the volume, then what happens is all of that gets shorter, right? Everything just sounds a little bit more the same if it's up here. And so what she's doing that now. She's obviously, and like of course she's not doing it consciously. Like Natalia's a skilled actor, like she knows what she's doing. This is the story that I make out of this, and as a teacher I see it all the time, is it's about something called cognitive load. Now, cognitive load is the sciencey word for the idea that you just can't think about too many things at the same time. Right now she's needing to both think about the acting, which like some part of our brain still has to be doing all the time because we're saying words that aren't our words. And she's also needing to think about the language. Now watch what happens if we remove one of those things. We remove the thinking about the language, then suddenly I think you'll see that her work comes across a lot more natural. And I know Natalia's going to watch this video. So Natalia, I would encourage you to look at it and hear behaviorally, see what's happening. And you'll see that your face is more relaxed, that your volume is easier. So there's like more ease in your body, there's more ease in your voice. And it's that ease that's going to read as confidence.
Новый голос. Слышал о них когда-нибудь? Is this a site? Anti-Putin? Я готовлю для них материал. About what? О том, что мы делаем.
Right, there's so much subtlety going on there. There's so much ease, like right down to like there's this little like this very tiny micro expression, when she's sort of reacting to whatever thought she's having. Now, I have no idea what the guy's saying to her. I have no idea what she's saying, but the acting is more interesting here, isn't it? And so here's the notes that she got in the breakdown, right? So this was sent to her by casting. And I've blocked out everything that might tell you what project it is, just enough to be helpful for this lesson is what I'm going to show you. Right, so this is a description of Marina from the original breakdown. When you meet Marina, she can seem brusque and dismissive, peremptory, imperious. If you didn't know what any of these words meant, of course, you want to look them up. Even if you were like, I'm pretty sure, it only takes 5 seconds to look it up. It is almost impossible to get close to her to scale the wall. But deep inside, she's a thoughtful and instinctively considerate person. Great, deep inside, like actors, so you can, as an actor, if you're doing this, you can probably trust that like that means that your sensitivity that you have deep inside is probably enough. Just that whenever these feelings arise, she immediately vetoes them as being weak, a distraction from the main goal, right? So if you look at if we were to go back and see, here I am already at my 20-minute mark. If I was to go back and show you that the first take in English, did you get brusque, dismissive, peremptory, imperious? Not really. Did you in the Russian take? Yeah, absolutely. It was there because she seemed like very inward, and part of that maybe is the story of the scene. But I think that you can see that reflected in the callback notes. So Retape this. I got taped and got a call back to retape the scene with notes. We enjoyed what she did in her previous tape, but we'd like her to redo those same scenes, but this time experimenting with a different tone for Marina. In the first scene in English, Marina should be more cool and aloof rather than terrified. In the second scene, she is cold to Vadim rather than friendly and smiley. We'd love her to reread the character sketch and incorporate more of Marina's disdain, her aloofness. So this is, the like kindest possible way for them to say, actually, like, we really liked what you did. It didn't actually fit the breakdown. And so you definitely, I think it's definitely useful to go through and particularly look for these adjectives: brusque, dismissive, peremptory, imperious, the that you can scatter those things through the scene. And obviously that's not all the character is. You want to bring all of the depth of your own life and artistry to it. But particularly if you get those kind of adjectives in a breakdown, I personally find them useful. And if you don't get them in the breakdown, I've often asked students, write your own breakdown, like write your own set of adjectives. And if you remember to the script analysis, the 10 questions for story sheet that I've used a lot, there's this descriptive words for the character, just a few of them, so that you have those to base your interpretation off of. So now if we look at her second take for each of those, here's the second take of the English scene.
This is it.
This is it. Put them on.
So like brusque, peremptory, both of these things mean that the opening of the scene needs to be faster. Again, there's that extra little bit of volume. And so we want to take the volume down, to that same kind of like ease that you saw when she was doing the scene in Russian. Now, and then here at the end of the scene, where like things are going crazy and things are happening, this is sort of in stark contrast to the terror. So she is absolutely making the adjustment. I would say that there's just an opportunity to bring in more of that character. Now, I don't in any way mean to say that like this is why, like, I don't know what the decision makers feelings were about it. Possibly the second they throw, oh my god, yes, that's exactly what we want. We're going to cast a girl with brown hair. Like that happens all the time. We tapes don't need to be perfect, but I'm an acting teacher, and so I'm hoping that my perspective on these scenes is still useful, because what I want is to encourage that growth mindset, of like, yeah, I know that I'm doing as much as I can, but like, what else? Great. Like, okay, want to make more mistakes. Like, I want more challenge. I want to learn more about this.
I never thought I would have to dress in full riot gear here on the streets of UK, but with this general election just few days away, the confrontation like this are becoming more and more.
Right. And so the definite adjustment, from the first take to the second take, but again, I think for what they've asked for in the breakdown, which was this sort of like put it away, it's a weakness, like imperious, I'm better than, she would have needed to pull it back. And then here's the second scene in Russian.
Новый голос.
Right? Like, this is exactly what they've asked for, isn't it? Cognitive load. Right? Like already, like it's very subtle, it's very real, but like this is colder than the first take of this scene.
Слышал о них когда-нибудь?
Is this a site anti-Putin?
Right? Direct eye contact, the tone of voice, like it's more powerful, it's more still, it's still nice and simple. So just there's some really nice work, Natalia, and thank you for being brave and sharing your work with us. And letting me talk about it publicly. Now, just before we wrap, I also want to show you Matthew's self-tape. So Matthew and I did this tape. Each one is just 30 seconds. They asked for 2 different takes. Now, what's interesting is this is actually, if you go back maybe like 3 or 4 months, we actually workshopped this particular scene, in one of the script lessons. And I guess they didn't cast the character back then, and they must have recast it because this came out Thursday of last week with a, hey, this character is going to work next Saturday. Like if they're not available next Saturday, don't submit them. And so he was doing a 15-page, audition, which was just like a beast. And at the very end of that, he was like, oh yeah, and there's this other one that's just like a couple of lines. We did 2 takes of this. He sent it in. They booked him immediately, and he's working on Saturday. So I wanted to show this to you as an example of this is what a successful self-tape looks like. And, one of the reasons that I want to show successful self-tapes is because they are not perfect. They're not any more perfect, than the tapes that don't get chosen. They just happen to fit, what the decision makers want for that character in some way that is more clear. So let's take a look at Matthew.
Are we too loud for you, Muldoon?
I can read under any conditions.
Oh, he's reading. In free time. How is that free?
One of the things that you would not know by watching this bully role is that Matthew is a musical theater actor whose agent found him when he was acting in Matilda at the Arts Club here in Vancouver. And then here is his variation. And they were really specific in the breakdown. They said, do 2 variations, maybe one that's a little bit more, I can't remember, more aggressive, I think was the one that you just saw. And then one that's, more like, I can't remember exactly that word, teasing, something like that. Now, the, again, technical mistake. Did you see how when Matthew cut this tape, he left in the like 1.5 seconds of neutral before the scene starts, right? So when he was sort of dragging and dropping this into his movie editor, he should have cut out this second so it started with the laugh, because we see this moment of like waiting. It's not a perfect tape. It's not technically perfect. You can also see that he doesn't have great eyelight. Right, the background's neutral, but there is no light reflecting in his eyes. Right, he's just using the microphone on his phone for this. And I think it's even like propped up on a stack of things. And so the technical imperfections do not disqualify your tape.
Are we too loud for you, Muldoon?
No, not at all, Carl. I can read under any conditions.
He's reading during free period. How's that free?
Right, and so particularly because the volume was so high, on the aggressive one, having one, where some of his lines are just him talking, is an indicator that, that he's not stuck there, right? Like, and if you don't have the option to do 2 takes and you're doing a longer scene, particularly something that's got a comedic element like this, what I'll usually counsel actors is I'll say, give us at least 2 lines where it's just you talking, so they know that that also is an option. So that when they watch it back and they're like, is that Michael Biehn guy? Does he always talk like that? Because, right. So you want to have a couple of lines where you're just talking. All right. So that is this week's self-tape. As soon as this is over, while this is whatever Zoom calls it, while it is downloading itself onto my computer and I'm getting ready to upload it onto YouTube, I will go onto the myfreeactingclass.com website and I'll upload that file that has the hundreds of lines. I built it for teen classes. So, if you are not a teenager, just ignore the ones that say mom or dad or are like full of teen slang. And then please, and I'm especially looking at you, Candy, like just record a single line of dialogue. Everybody who doesn't know me, just know that Candy has been coming like basically every day for like 8 months, and I have not seen video of her doing anything. So I was really thinking of her with this exercise because she has expressed a desire to do it lots of times, and I want to make it as low barrier as humanly possible. First, by showing you, hey, this guy just taped this with his phone, not fancy, technically imperfect, still he booked it, and then saying, hey, here I'm going to give you all these lines. You don't have to go looking for them. You know exactly where to find them. There they are. So. And any kind of self-tape for next week. Please feel free to send. Now, does anybody have a question for me? Like, I really am happy to stick around for a couple of minutes. Do you have questions about anything that I covered today, or anything that is on your acting minds that you would like me to talk about? I wish you could all see Shanda's thinking face right now. Yeah. Claudine, please.
Just a quick one. Victoria's got a self-tape to do, and I didn't know whether to, she's in bed having a bedtime story. Do I do it on a chair with the blue wall behind her, or shall I actually do it in her bed? She's 5.
My advice is to do it in the chair, in the chair with the blue wall behind her.
Okay, will do.
Yeah, but when you do that, if she's supposed to be in bed, either put the chair all the way against the wall so she can actually physically lean back on the wall, or if that's not possible with your setup, have her scooch her bum forward in the chair so she can actually like lean her head on the back of the chair.
Okay.
Yeah, and my reasoning for that is just that you want people to be looking only at Victoria. Like, you don't want them to be looking at the pattern on her pillows, or what her headboard is like, or what color the flowers on the wallpaper are. And so if we can remove those distractions, then we just highlight Victoria a little bit. Yeah, and you can still create that like I'm lying in bed feeling, by just like scooching down in the chair until you can actually lie your head, not straight back obviously, but sideways so that your face is still there, there on the back of the chair. I've seen lots of tapes, or mostly like lots of first takes in class by actors who are like, I'm sleeping, and just like, it doesn't look anything like you're sleeping. Your head's just dangling in midair. That actually looks horribly uncomfortable. So there's my advice on that one.
Okay. All right then. Okay, that's fine.
Anybody else have a question before we wrap up today? Okay, great. Well, I hope to see some of you tomorrow, and then we'll be back the following Monday with more of Leanne, and then myself on Tuesday, and then Julia on Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for coming. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be back. Woo, 2021.